In August 2025, we decided to go to Italy, where we were going to meet Nikki, Emilia and Mark, who would come there by plane whilst we were driving with our car. So we started off in Frienersdorf and headed all the way down to Bavaria, where we had a good night's sleep in Ingolstadt. Not much to see there, and then made us on our way to cross the Alps. The motorways are wonderful, and in parts they follow the so-called Via Mala, the bad way or the bad pathway, which is depicted in Kittel's novel with the same name, Via Mala, very bleak. And eventually we reached the Hinterrheintal, the Rhine Valley behind, so to say. That led us to Splügen, which is where the Splügen Pass Street begins. It's very rugged there. Weather was not all too good, but as one can see, the street up there is very demanding, and it was also very, very heavy traffic there. Well, probably not with downtown London, but for such a small road it was quite something. And the higher we climbed, the more bleak it got. And here on this, you get an idea of the stunning landscapes. But also, here to the left, you see the winding road. And then, eventually, we made it over the Passo. The weather somehow seemed to get better more or less immediately. And we made it down the hills. Endless, strong, bendy curves, requiring a lot of attention and concentration. And that not only because of the terrain, but also because of quite a lot of drivers who let themselves into a challenge which they were not obviously quite up to. Me having crossed the Splügen Pass on multiple times with the motorbike, but also with the car, it was okay, but nevertheless annoying and tiring. So I was quite happy when we eventually came so far down that we met civilization once again. But it was still some way to go, and as I say, a taxing way as that. But landscape beautiful, weather wonderful, very warm already. So we had a good drive down there, but as I say, I was also tired. Sonja enjoyed it, was responsible to do the videos you are seeing here, while we drive through endless tunnels and winding our way on the bendy road down to the valley of Chiavenna. It was stunning, as it always is, and the landscape was just breathtaking. If one loves tunnels and bendy roads, this certainly would be the country for that person. Well, eventually we reached the valley of Chiavenna. The town of Chiavenna itself is situated in the Mera Valley. In the back, the Splügenpass, to the west and to the east, the foothills of the Alps opens the valley to give way for the river Mera to flow down to Lake Como. I first had to rehydrate myself. Then we went into town for some Italian vista and got accustomed to everything, and then had a nice, wonderful meal with that gorgeous Italian food. And My God, it was gorgeous. With such a view greeting us, it was of course difficult to get out of bed every morning, but we had to get up to go to Milan to pick the kids up. But first of all, we had to see that we were sufficiently supplied with nutrients for the task to come. Prepared in such a way, we decided to go on the western shore of Lake Como. I hadn't been there, Sonja hadn't been there, because last time we were at Lake Como, we were both too lazy to get out of the hotel. And whilst I was there at an earlier time, we went with the motorbike on the eastern shore, which is mostly tunnels. So we enjoyed the vista over the sea, overlooking the wonderful landscape, and had a good time driving down to Malpensa airport of Milan, where we stopped at Gallarate to have a nice meal before the kids finally landed, and we had them there, got them back to Chiavenna, and were able to reunite. The following day, we all went out and had a very, very nice meal together and enjoyed our time with the good food. But of course, in the evening, after the meal, we met in the pub and we devised a plan what to do with our time. It was to go up to Piana Sola, which is above Chiavenna, but we had to look for the weather. It didn't look all too good, so we decided to make the way up there, 650 meters, by car instead. Piana Sola bears some very, very nice views over the valley of Chiavenna. It is a frazione, a brotherhood of roughly 70 inhabitants, and it is on 630 meters above sea level. It's a very, very old settlement, very authentic, I would say, not whitewashed by tourism. And we had a bit of difficulties to find the restaurant we were aiming for, but as I said, all very authentic. Then we stumbled past the vegetable garden, where they were not only growing herbs, but also the potatoes, which we will meet again a little bit later. Once we found the restaurant, we were overwhelmed by the pretty view over the valley of Chiavenna. It was just gorgeous. Now the clouds, which looked a bit threatening from below, made a real dramatic backdrop to the overall landscape. And we were parked in a kind of strange sitting arrangements, all looking out. But with that sort of view, you quite quickly feel confident about leaving traditional ways of sitting opposite each other behind. Surprisingly quick, some surprisingly good-looking food came on the table as some starter, the usual pescola, and we enjoyed what appeared to be a very nice development of the day. Emilia had a stick coated with meat, and she had fun, a lot of fun, scraping the meat off the stick. And we had wonderful meals around all that, and we enjoyed our meals very, very much. And it was here that we met the purple potatoes, this time stuffed in ravioli with the cheese sauce again, alongside with the vegetable. Gorgeous. We, of course, sat in the bar again and decided to have a barbecue next night. A nice restaurant, directly built at the mountains, has large cellars going into the mountain where they ripen their cheese and their beef, bacon, so to say. Very nice. We decided on our food, and everything there is basically barbecued, like this little wonderful ribeye steak for Thomas, or this equally wonderful looking mixed grill for Nicole. But even for Emilia there was something like a barbecued dessert. So everyone seemed to be happy, and so we had a very good evening. Emilia and I had already bought the tickets for the bus on the next day and the tickets for the boat across the Lake Como. So we headed off and we wanted to go to Colico, but the bus driver took us to Belano because he thought it would be the better way to do. But we already had our tickets for the boat from Colico. Nevertheless, we arrived in Belano and I made sure with the ferry provider that we could nevertheless use our ticket to start from Belano to cross the sea on the way to Bellagio. Now, Bellagio is a very famous place at the Lake Como, and that is well deserved, that title. Already the approach was very dramatic, and it's very nice. With the bus driver's intervention of getting us to Belano instead of Colico to set over to Bellagio, we were there very much earlier than we anticipated. So we basically had a free way to run along in the city and explore it. But whilst we then went back to the shores of Lake Como, we found that one ferry after the other came and spat a multitude of tourists out. And as these tourists then filled the little town, it became overcrowded and not as nice anymore. So we used the time to take some photos while we waited on a much earlier ferry, which was supposed to bring us back, this time to Colico. While we waited for the ferry to come to take us the 1.5 hours ride up to Colico, we had another chance to enjoy the wonderful landscape on the shores of Lake Como. It was a very nice thing, and we all were very much in agreement that it was worth the boat trip over the wonderful, beautiful situated lake. After that, we went for coffee and an ice cream, and we're talking already about what to do with our next day, where we wanted to see something completely different to what we have seen so far. Our plan was to follow the river Mera, not up the valley leading to the Sprügen Pass, but where it turns to the west, i.e. to the Swiss border. There is a nice little valley, very wild, where a nice restaurant was situated, providing local food. And that, of course, took our interest, because we were there not at least for the food. We didn't quite know what to expect, and at first there were not many people there. Outside there were a few, but inside not so much. And we ordered a complete set menu, starters, which we are having here, plus wine. And then it got really serious. They really do take their food very serious. So we had a pizzocchiani, Bianchi 1930 style, which is basically a buckwheat dish with cheese and herbs and just wonderful, cheesy buckwheat done in a pan with bacon bits in it. Really nice. To be honest, by that time we were basically already filled up, but little did we know, we got a huge plate of spare ribs, polenta. Sonja is smiling still. And, well, the polenta, the spare ribs and the sausages, not so much the red cabbage, ended up where it always ends up, i.e. in our guts. But we started to sweat already. Then it was cake and biscuits and very nice. And then coffee and the schnapps for everyone. A real nice meal and really filling. Eventually, the last days of our Chiavenna holiday came and we used them to go into the village, find a nice little of those marketplaces where we could sit outside, al fresco dining as it is called, and had a real good meal. Very nice. It was a wonderful way of saying goodbye to Chiavenna. The following day we went along the Mera. It started to rain and it was a bit nippy, so it was time to go home, but not without. The following morning being greeted by the foothills of the Alps once again and having a wonderful meal in the Hotel Conradi where we had stayed all those 10 days. But eventually it was time to say goodbye to all these nice vistas from the hotel of the surrounding valley and the mountains and the town of Chiavenna, and then dash off to Gallarate once again to the airport. Gallarate is a working town next to the airport of Milan, and we found a nice osteria. At the beginning rather sparsely populated, but then very, very quickly developing into a busy hub where we actually were able for little money to grab a very original and very tasty dish with porcipi, and of course the occasional dessert was thrown in as well, so we were very, very happy with that. And we then dropped the kids off and dashed to the Alps, to the San Bernardino Passo, where we made our way into Switzerland, back again, and then next morning off to Munich. Munich greeted us with the noise, which is probably symptomatic for German Gemütlichkeit. Here the Hofbräuhaus, which was crowded and too full, so we went to the Schneiderweise, a place which I rather much prefer, but quiet it certainly was not. We had a nice meal, needless to say, of course we had, and I had in the morning my white sausages and enjoyed that very much. And then it was time to go home, but not unless I had fueled myself up. And that was the end of our holiday. If you liked that at all, please subscribe and stay noticed for further videos in this way.